Hello and welcome to the Greg Fearon podcast with your host Greg Fearon, and today I have back the best chef in the world.
Oh,
yeah, Joe Collie Keys, who's gonna talk today about the barriers that are holding you ladies back from being your best self. Hey, Joe.
hey, high praise indeed. I'm not sure about the best chef in the world, but I'll take that.
I'll have to test that theory in the summer when I have a barbecue and you can come and cook some jerk chicken or something. I don't know. Then I can judge.
With my Jamaican heritage, I should probably have learned that by now from the in-laws, but I'm not sure. I never try and go up against them. They would say, not enough sugar. They would say, not enough sugar, not enough sugar.
Got to season it more seasoning.
More seasoning. More salt, more pepper, more hot, more spice.
Yeah, more Scotch bonnet. Yeah. Awesome. So this is like your third time, I think, on the show, isn't it?
Yeah, we've had some great chats.
We have indeed, and I think today was going to be another awesome one. So just for people that are new to the podcast, just give us a quick rundown of who you are, what you do, and then we'll dive in.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I'm Jo Keys, and I am a natural chef and healthy eating educator. I came to this late in life after I'd had my 3 children and decided to retrain at the College of Naturopathic Medicine to become a natural chef. And I, although I call myself a chef, I am a chef, but I don't chef in sort of restaurants and things like that. I create recipes and spend a lot of my time educating other people. That's where my passion is, educating other people in how to cook simple meals for better health generally. And I do that through workshops, one-off workshops, which I run with another chef I trained with. And we take a dive into sort of the nutritional science behind that, because I've continued to educate myself on this kind of the nutritional science side of things, as well as kind of cooking and creating recipes and things. So I know the nutrients that need to go in to help people in with different certain conditions and things like that. But also another part is really educating and supporting women, particularly women, but not exclusively, on how to get on their health journey. They especially sort of starting perimenopause, people tend to kind of find things aren't working the same way that they used to. If they found a way in the past that's worked for them, maybe that's not working anymore and they can't understand why, and just really supporting them, giving the accountability and tips and help along the way and bringing people together as well. I think being part of a community that are trying to do the same thing and are going through similar things to you is really important as well, and really helps them. So kind of that's where I'm at the moment, and always developing and looking at new ways to just share my passion really for healthy eating and how easy it can be. It doesn't have to be complicated, and you can keep it simple and get it to work for you really.
Awesome, great intro. So, and obviously we'll share how people can find you and
great.
Hunt you down after this, because you do some awesome stuff on Instagram and you've got an awesome Facebook group. So let's dive in, right? And you mentioned something there which I think is going to resonate with a lot of people. Like, women will find around perimenopause that things don't seem to work how they used to. And is that a barrier for change to women?
Yeah, I think it is, and a barrier to change, not because things aren't working and they can't change the way they are, but I think it's a barrier because it makes them stuck, which is what we were talking about, because they feel that they don't know their bodies anymore, they don't know what to do. And we're all creatures of habit, and we resort to what we've known to work in the past, and when that doesn't work, we don't know where to go, and we get confused and we get despondent, and what a lot of women do is then start investigating, going, okay, well, that's not working, why is that not working, what can I do? And they're on social media, they're Googling, they're seeing the media, and stuff like that, and then they start to kind of look into finding the next shiny thing that might, this is going to be the magic pill, which I think we've talked about before, that's going to solve all my problems. And this is where, you know, I've kind of coined a little, oh gosh, what do they call them? What's the
Joey,
grammar word for them?
Joeyism? Is it a Joeyism?
Yeah, well, acronym or something, isn't it? Where so the first, you know, that it all becomes a load of crap, if you don't mind me using that word. But I mean, the C of that is confusion. And people go out and they listen to their neighbor, they see their neighbor or Dawn down the street being able to lose 3 stone in 3 months, and I want to do that, and why is that not working for me? I must do what she does. Or, you know, they say that I should only eat drink celery juice every morning, and you know, fast for 20 out of the 24 hours a day, or you know, whatever it might be. There's so much information out there. I think it just becomes confusing and paralyzing. And I've know a lot of clients who've tried lots and lots and lots of different things over the last couple of years, but they've never stuck with one thing either. So this isn't working within the first 2 weeks. I haven't dropped a stone in 3 weeks, so this can't be working for me. Or, you know, I'm not waking up and jumping out of bed with all the energy that they promised me I would, because I'm now eating, I don't know, whatever it might be that they've told you to do to rebalance your hormones or kickstart your metabolism.
Yeah.
And so I think that is the first thing, is confusion. And I mean, you must get this a lot as well with your clients, do you not?
Oh, it's a constant thing of educating people that you didn't get where you are now in 2 weeks.
No.
So to undo it and unpick the habits, the mindset you've got, the biology you currently got, is going to take time.
Yeah, and I think you touch on something there, you know, it's the biology of it. And we can't appreciate, and I don't think any of us appreciate enough, how different we all are. And what works for someone in perimenopause might not work for the next person in perimenopause, you know. And personally, I think a lot of this comes down to your gut flora, your gut microbiome. Everybody's is so different, and so that means that your body reacts in very different ways to very different stimuluses. And we can only know that ourselves as to whether it's working or not. And we need to learn to trust ourselves, and listen to our bodies, so that we can change that confusion into knowledge. You know, and I think teaching people to educate themselves without overwhelm. And by, you know, for me, it's focusing on, if you want to go and Google and do research, I'm all for that, because I think educating yourself is really important, and it takes away that confusion. But you need to just stick to a couple of very well established people who talk sense, you know, who are science-based, who are qualified, and can give you sensible advice. So that's one thing. And the second part of the knowledge is learning to listen to your body. As I've just said, you know, if you aren't waking up feeling great in the morning because you're waking up with a headache, or you're waking up feeling still exhausted, there is something going on. Your body is trying to tell you something that's not working correctly, and it's trying to work through those. And you may need help with this, you know, from qualified people, to work through and kind of peel back the layers of what's going on, so that you know, I mean, for me, something like that would probably be the fact that you're not detoxifying properly. And if you're not sleeping properly, that's when we do a lot of detoxifying. And so it would be looking at that kind of pathway through your body. And, you know, one of the things that you can do for that is to increase your cruciferous vegetables, things like broccoli and cauliflower and cabbage. They really help with the detoxifying process. And lemon, you know, lemon and ginger and those kind of spices and things that you could drink in a tea or something, they're really helpful as well. So it's just educating yourself, but you know, if you are feeling confused and trying all these different things, is just to stop, take a step back, keep it simple, and educate yourself and turn that confusion into knowledge, really.
That's on a really good point, because when I work with clients, I try to make things really simple. Like, I'm not throwing a lot of things at you at once. I'm like, we're going to do 1 or 2 things this week and we're going to nail them. And that might last 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Until we nail that habit. Is there a thing that I think women often don't trust themselves? So they feel like they have to do a million things because that's what they do in their home life. That's what they do at work. So they have to treat themselves as, I have to do everything.
Yeah. Want to try everything because they want to get those results. And I think you know, that's a really good point, is that I think as women, you know, especially at this kind of age, you know, 40 to 60, you know, it's kind of that sandwich generation where we're multitasking in so many areas. You know, if we have children, they're growing up, but they still need to be looked after. But also maybe you've got aging parents who also then, you know, you're turning from the child to the parent to look after them as well. And you know, they become a little bit more dependent on you. And you know, let alone trying to manage your own life if you work as well. We do so much, and that plays into it, you know, because then we get into the kind of the next thing, which is responsibility and awareness. You know, do we have time to prioritize ourselves? You know, do we give ourselves enough credit that we deserve to give ourselves a bit of time? And if we do give ourselves that bit of time, actually we end up being able to give other people more time. And I think it takes us a long time to appreciate that if we slow down and don't stress about every little thing that we used to be able to stress about when we were a bit younger, because we probably didn't have quite so many things to stress about. You know, let the small things go a little bit, especially when it comes to the children, and give that time to yourself.
Yep.
And one of those things that you could use that time for, not only to just relax and be with yourself, but is to use that time to prioritize your health. Giving yourself that time is one of those things, but then you can also start to utilize that time to prepare food or make a plan for your exercise and get organized for yourself. And it then becomes a, you know, a perpetual circle of better habits, better routines, you know, and then so, you know, the A of the crap is awareness, or most of us have a lack of it. And until we become aware of exactly what we're actually doing and stop, you know, that takes time to stop. You have to stop and go, okay, so how am I actually spending my time? I mean, I really don't spend much time on my phone. I really don't spend much time watching the telly or talking on the phone or just popping into the shops, or, you know, it's not true of everybody. But if you do sit and analyze your time properly, you will find that you can find half an hour for yourself each day that you do something different than you're currently doing with it. So time is one thing, because if I was given £1 for every time I'm told, oh, but I don't have time to do a meal plan, I don't have time to prepare meals, I need something I can just grab and go, can you not make it for me? I would be a millionaire. But you know, it is taking that time for yourself and becoming aware of what you're doing. So time is one of the things that you need to become aware of, and then sort of bringing an awareness to your habits. So they may be, so when are you snacking? What are you snacking on? Why are you snacking? Are you hungry? Is it just a habit? You know, and the same is for, it goes with alcohol. You know, when are you drinking? Why are you drinking? You know, really delving in and asking your questions. Sleep is another major one. You know, do you have a sleep routine? What time are you going to bed? Why are you not going to bed till midnight? Are you getting up? Why are you feeling rubbish when you get up? Am I getting, you know, 6, 7, 8 hours decent sleep? Bringing some awareness to these things is one of the key ways to then be able, you can't change anything until you know what you're doing. And it's just about building that picture, getting all the puzzle pieces up the right way effectively. So that's what the awareness is, you know, you start with your puzzle and all the bits are upside down and back to front, and we're bringing our awareness to it. We can see the pieces of the puzzle, and it's not until then that we can start to put them together and build a better routine, and make some changes to some of those habits slowly, one at a time, like you say, one thing at a time, nail that, then move on. You know, and so that awareness is really key before the changes can happen, especially if you want them to become long-term habits, you know, to be able to change. I mean, with your guys, in, you know, when it comes to fitness, you know, are they aware of what they do? You know, time wise, I bet you hear, oh well, I haven't got time. A lot.
I blow that apart. I'm very good at that. That's one of my favorite ones. So if I've got a client who always talks about time, I'll often ask the question and say, can you get your phone for a minute? And I'll be like, yeah. Just go to your settings and just go to your screen time. What does it say? Oh, and what's the most used app? Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. Okay, great. So if we aim to reduce that by 20% this week, do you think that would free you up to be able to do X? And I think what becomes apparent is that it's not time, it's prioritizing self.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, and that comes down to the R of crap, which for me is responsibility or lack of responsibility. And it's, you know, like you say, prioritizing self, that takes responsibility. That takes me taking responsibility for my health, my journey, and the choices that I make. And until you can take on that responsibility for your own health journey, be that to heal yourself from whatever problems that you have, or to lose weight, and understanding why you're doing that as well, you know, take responsibility for the reason that you're doing this. Not, and I will never accept, but I'll be happy when I've lost 3 stone. That's not a reason. If you're not happy now, you're not going to be happy when you get 3 stone lighter. I've seen it before. It's not. So, you know, that's another area that you have to work on and take responsibility for, is really delving into why you want to do it, because that's what's going to motivate you to prioritize it, and move forward. You can't use other people as an excuse all the time. But my husband wanted to take me out for dinner, but the kids wanted pizza for tea, you know, but I had to do X, Y, and Z, so I couldn't get to bed before midnight. You know, it's the choices that you make will always be your responsibility. And you can blow all those excuses out of the water if you prioritize yourself and your health.
Always interesting when I ask the question, okay, cool. So the state that you feel like you're in, you know, you're unhealthy, you feel lethargic, you don't feel sexy, you don't feel like you can wear the clothes, you're not putting yourself for promotions at work, and you felt however bad you feel. Because I regularly have ladies cry when they talk to me.
Oh yeah.
They cry all the time. And I'm like, okay, right. Now, what I want you to do is go and tell your family exactly what you told me about how you're feeling. And then say to them, I need more help in the house. And that's really scary for a lot of women, I think, because it feels like they're failing. But that's not the case at all. Like my mum I had my list of chores that I had to do from about 5 years old. Like, and I couldn't sit down and watch TV until they were done and to the right standard.
Yeah.
But I feel like we've got into this thing where a lot of women will take every responsibility on, and they don't need to. And I think you're missing an opportunity then to teach your kids how to do things for later life.
You're absolutely right. You know, and I hold my hands up. I am probably one of the worst at this. And I know how I've got myself into the situation. So what I was saying earlier on, you know, about don't sweat the small stuff with the kids, you know, that is great. But what, for me, it's turned into a bit, is that I tell you what, I'll just do it myself because I don't want the row, you know, and it's really hard if you haven't had it instilled in you, you know, at a very young age, that this is what is expected of you. You know, when you get to the point when they're kind of mid-teens and you think, well, actually, it's about time you could pack your own school bag and load and unload the dishwasher, or at least get your washing off the floor into the washing bin. If not, actually do a wash. You know, or I better do it myself because if they do the washing, you know, they won't do it right. You know, and it is a difficult one for women. I hold my hands up. I'm you know, guilty of that. But it is taking that responsibility to know that if you can get them to do that, or get help, or even just get the support of, I'm on this journey because I feel like this. I mean, going home and telling your family that that's how you feel in the first place is really, really hard, because, you know, similarly, I regularly have clients in tears because it is emotional for them, but they don't want to show that emotion necessarily at home, because that's not a strong mummy. That's mummy crying. Why is mummy crying? You know, and we don't want them to feel that way, but it is important for them to see that, because they have those emotions as well.
Exactly. And how are they going to grow up and be emotionally available? So we preach on LinkedIn about being socially emotional and all this stuff, but then we hide everything ourselves. It doesn't even make sense.
Yeah. Do you know what? I was at a church meeting the other day, a prayer meeting the other day, and we were talking about, sorry, we're going properly off.
No, go deep. Let's go.
We were talking about freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And when are you truly free? And it was really interesting. We dived into it, and most of us came to, it was purely women, we came to the conclusion that the only time we feel really free to be ourselves is when we are with friends that we have known since we were younger at school. And that's because, you know, even with your family and your husbands, your sisters, well, I thought I was free with my sister, but I'll come to that in a minute. But we're playing a role in every other part of our life, except for when we were growing up and we were with our school friends. They know us truly, properly, and we can be completely ourselves with them. Whereas with your partner, you're a husband or a wife, you know, you're a wife. With your children, you're a mother. With your siblings, you're the sister or the brother. And, you know, and I was away with my sister and my sister-in-law the other week, and, you know, we got into, you know, emotional stuff, and they were, but I've never seen you cry. And I'm like, oh, I am like the most emotional person ever, most people would think. But it's because I was probably, unbeknown to me, playing the older sister role. You know, and it's things like that, you know. So when we go back into our homes, you know, with you, they're being free because, and with me, because they can just be open, because we have no judgment on them. We're not expecting them to play a role.
Yeah, and that's them, aren't we? Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, it's just an interesting phenomenon that, you know, even when we think we are open and free and we've got the most loving family in the world, we're still playing this role potentially, which does hold us back from being as open as we maybe should be.
Just on the roles thing, because I think this is a really big thing, and I see a lot of this on social media. Like, men, especially in the house, don't do stuff. So I think I'm going to give a quick little way to clear this up. Men are very good at going, we've worked a whole day, so I don't want to come home and do more stuff. That is man's logic. We're like, we work hard to be able to go and play football, watch football, or whatever we like to do. But at home, we just want to go,
Yeah.
Often, men will take, and I've seen it and I've done it myself, we'll tell our partner, why are you cleaning? Like, the dishes can we wait till tomorrow? Let's sit down and cuddle, watch whatever. But oftentimes the woman's like, no, I've got to make sure this is done. Like, I can't have plates in the sink overnight. And I'm like, the Queen is not coming to judge your house right now. But these are self-imposed standards that I think they would have seen from parents who were the generation before, where often mum was at home and had time to do all of this stuff.
Yeah.
Now most women are working.
Yeah.
So if you come home, have dinner, and you want to chill out.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's that, don't sweat the small stuff, you know. Does it really matter? But we, you know, like you say, these inbuilt habits and, you know, learned behaviors are so ingrained, you know, even down to things like you know, the clean plate brigade. I again class myself as one of those. You know, I come across this a lot, but you can't waste food. So a lot of my clients said, well, the answer is, at the moment, is I eat it. You know, even the kids stuff that, you know, if they're leaving half a breast of chicken, I better eat it. You know, it could be worse than a breast of chicken, but, you know, it's more likely to be there. But that's the thing, is that we've learned all these different behaviors, and a lot of the time it's unraveling those, which comes to this kind of the second part of awareness, is experience, and that is experience of yourself. That's becoming your own expert. Really analyze all these little things, and taking time out to really ask yourself some of these questions. So why am I eating the children's food after I've eaten my own dinner? You know, why am I stressing about the dishes in the sink? You know, what is going to happen if I don't do that? Nothing. Yeah. No.
I think that's where that difference between men and women are. We're quite like, in this box, this is the work box, this is the home box, whatever. But I know women have a different way of thinking.
Yeah.
But yeah, ladies, you can chill out.
Yeah.
Chill out. Like,
and you know, and once you take on, so responsibility, the responsibility, once you take on that responsibility, it becomes empowerment. So, you know, responsibility becomes empowerment, and once you've empowered yourself, the repercussions of that are tenfold. You know, and you will see that within your family as well. You know, if you trust them, I've seen this with my son, if you actually can be strong and trust them to pack their school bag and get out the door without you nagging them and checking every, you know, you're handing the responsibility to them. They become empowered to actually, oh, mum's trusting me to do that. So then they actually do it, because if they don't do it, they're going to get in trouble at school at the end of the day. And once you stop doing it for them, they take on that responsibility. That then frees you up and gives you more time and is empowering to you. So it's that, take that responsibility on, empower yourself and other people in your family if that's what's needed, to be able to move you forward and to put you in a better frame of mind and mindset.
Really great illustration of this. I was watching a wildlife program the other day, and this female cheetah, she had 3 cubs, and obviously she would do all the hunting at first, but then eventually what she would do is she'd catch something and then let them hunt with it.
Okay, yeah.
And half the time they'd mess it up. They would mess it up. After a while, guess what happened? They got it. One night, she disappeared into the wilderness to obviously have more babies. They had to go and fend for themselves.
Yeah.
But they knew how to go and hunt.
Yeah.
They were perfect at it. And I think that's what we need to do to help the next generation learn stuff.
Yeah.
You have to become adults. They got to learn. You
know, and how important is that when it comes to health? You know, the example that we set to them now is just, you know, is massive. You know, it can be small things like, you know, if they're still young, the way that you wean them onto, what foods you wean them onto, you know, and then the habits that we show to them as adults, and giving them the responsibility to cook in the kitchen and teach them, you know, even if to start with, they want to cook rubbish that they've seen on TikTok, and you're thinking, oh, I don't want them cooking that. That's really not good for them. That's not what we're talking about here. Yes, it is. It's getting them in the kitchen. That is step one. It doesn't matter what they're cooking. Get them in the kitchen, give them the responsibility to do something in the kitchen, you know, and then they will develop that. If you're teaching them about what is the more healthy options, then they will, when it becomes a priority to them, we could be talking about it all the time. It does sink in, even if they are down the shops buying all the rubbish, which they all do. Even if you've brought them up eating really healthily, they will break out at some point and they will go and experiment and do what they want. And we have to let them do that, because that's another game, again, a thing of responsibility. They have to learn by their own mistakes. But if we can educate them now, hopefully they will take that forward. They will break away from it, but they will come back to it, because that knowledge and that experience will have, and the skills that they've gained will have sunk in, and they will come back to it much easier than the people who have never had that education or that exposure or that experience. I'm hoping that my kids will class themselves pretty lucky that they've got a gym in the garden, a dad as an instructor, a mum as a healthy chef. And yes, they all want to eat rubbish most of the time, but I know that I'm getting in as much healthy stuff as I can now. And I know that they've learned it, and it is in there somewhere.
That leads me nicely onto a perfect point where you mentioned your gym. So I think access to exercise is potentially a barrier. Often when people say, I feel embarrassed at the gym, I don't belong in the gym, all that kind of stuff. So is that something that you might have heard, or even your husband might have heard?
Yeah, very, very much so, especially with the ladies that I work with, because they've not been brought up necessarily in a gym environment. They may have done sports at school, but as soon as they, this is a classic story, they've done sports and been really sporty at school, and then when they've left school, they've not done it. It's just, they're not part of that school team anymore. So, and then they don't know what to do, because going to the gym then sort of 20 years ago wasn't really accessible to everybody, and it wasn't so much the done thing as it certainly is now, for women of this age anyway. And so introducing them back into it is quite difficult. So generally what I find is they'll be happy to go for walks. So getting out, walking, I thoroughly recommend that to everybody. Nobody there are, well, unless you've got joint issues and things like that, that can't just take themselves out for a walk. There are very little barriers to that. And things that are a little bit more class-based, certainly. So, and more gentle, like Pilates and yoga to start them off. And then it's kind of trying to introduce some element of strength training as well. So those are the three things that I try to introduce eventually. But what happens is, once they start on the journey for sort of 3, 4, 6, 8 weeks, they start to feel better. Their body starts to feel a bit better. They feel better in their skin, and then they feel more confident to be able to go and do something at the gym more. So if they've joined a gym to do a Pilates class, they then may go, okay, well, maybe I'll try the circuits class or the something else class, once they feel a little bit more confident in themselves. So it's again comes on to the P of crap, which is perseverance, really, or, well, patience, really. First of all, it's lack of patience, that being the barriers that they want results all the time. But the next is patience, having patience and persevering and trying to stick with it. These things do not develop overnight. Habits do not change overnight. Your health does not change overnight. I know a lot of people look at me and go, oh, well, it's easy for you, look, it's fine. I've had a 10-year journey of being yo-yo dieting, and a 10-year journey back off that to get to health. I've been there. I do understand how difficult it can be. I hated exercise. I never did any exercise at school. Used to avoid it like the plague. I was a big girl as a teenager, and it wasn't until my early 20s, as when I moved to London, that I kind of went, oh, everybody does exercise and is kind of healthy. Oh dear, I better get on the bandwagon. But then it was just all about weight loss. I needed to look thinner and slimmer, and then I met my husband, who was obviously very much into exercise, and a wedding, and that was the motivation at the time. But it was still all this yo-yo dieting for a reason, for an event, or it was never really about health until after the children had come along, really. So it's been a very long journey.
What that tells me is you've had a identity shift, because on this side you've got the what you've said, yo-yo diets, on and off diets, only diet for extreme purposes when there's a wedding, holiday, birthday, social gathering, reunion, all that stuff, to no, this is how Joe lives.
Yeah.
And that's the big fundamental shift, I think.
Yeah, massive.
People have to make. The diet doesn't matter, the training plan doesn't matter until we start to install that mindset.
Yeah, and for me, there was that light bulb moment, and I think everybody does have one, but you don't necessarily see it at the time. But I can very much mark in my diary almost that light bulb moment, which was when my second daughter had digestive issues. Well, all of my children had digestive issues, but I think I've probably told you this story before. But yeah, my middle daughter, she was really, really quite poorly, sort of preschool age and just into the first year of her school. And I took her to a nutritional therapist to try and sort this out. And we started to look at the diet, and I thought we were pretty healthy, but there was still a lot of processed foods. There was still a lot of gluten in there. Anyway, so we cleaned up the diet, and literally within less than 3 months, she was off all medication and she was absolutely fine. And it was that light bulb moment where I went, oh, what I put in my mouth actually affects my body, which is, it's silly when you say it like that, but until there is a reason sometimes, and often I see that with clients, it's not until they get to rock bottom that they go, oh dear, I really need to do something about this now.
It's going to be very controversial.
Go on.
It's not me, it's my hormones.
Oh yes, well, yes, be controversial. I would agree that being a woman in that situation, I would agree that my hormones definitely have an impact. But they're not an excuse that you can use to hide away and not address that.
I think why I just wanted to see how your reaction was to it, because obviously that's, how can I explain it? I think we know hormones are important, right? I totally, like, I understand it, I've studied it, I geek out on this stuff. But it can often be used as a defense against actually doing stuff that will actually.
And that comes back to the R again, and that's responsibility. You can't use your hormones as an excuse to not take action. It is, your hormones are changing in your body without a shadow of a doubt, and those changes will impact the way that your body works and processes all sorts of processes within the body. And what I try to say to my ladies in that situation is, we're going to look at what you put in your body first, because we want to be making sure that your other hormones, because all the hormones impact each other, and starting with looking at a low glycemic diet where we're reducing the simple sugars and the carbohydrates we want them to be coming from brown rice, brown versions, or whole grain versions, reducing that actual quantity size, having more colorful vegetables, so we're reducing so we're kind of anti-inflammatory and antioxidants high in our diet, but the really balancing those blood sugars, because they will influence our insulin levels, and then in turn our adrenals, and your cortisol, and then all of these hormones are interconnected, and that is also going to impact our estrogen and progesterone, and it gets very complicated. But what we don't want people to do is get bogged down in that detail. It is addressing what you are doing and keeping it simple, which for most women is to, first of all, to start looking at those sugars, and keeping those sugars, and you're balancing your hormones, balancing your blood sugars to balance the hormones generally. Alcohol has a massive impact. I think a lot of women will agree that alcohol and the way that we process that, once the hormones start getting a bit iffy, it changes. It's quite strange, but I know a lot of women who have found that, and again, that's to do with the sugars as much as anything, and the sulfates in that, in wine particularly. And so reducing alcohol is another big one, because then that also impacts our sleep. And as I said earlier, you know, we detoxify a lot when we're sleeping, and you know, our hormones need to detoxify as well. So you know, it is all interconnected, but we can't use our hormones as an excuse not to take action. I think that is the key.
And obviously, because I know, you know, a little while ago you said, Greg, I need some help with, I'm going to shift a bit of body fat. And it was, you know, interesting because you didn't mention your hormones. I mean, obviously I know you, and I understood where you were coming from, but as soon as you made those tweaks, magic happened.
Yeah. Do you want the next part of that story?
Okay, go on then. I haven't heard for a while, so you know.
No, so the next part of that story goes into so the magic did start to happen, but I still knew that something wasn't right, because my digestion was not optimum by any stretch of the imagination. I was suffering from bloating more than anything, and that was bothering me, and I've been ignoring it probably for quite a long time, but I couldn't ignore it any longer. I had dropped a little bit of weight, but not as much as or in the way that I particularly wanted to. Anyway, cut a very long story short, I then went to a gut specialist nutritional therapist, because I knew I wanted to do some stool samples. So I had all those done to find out what was going on. And interestingly, it brought up a couple of things. One, that my gut flora, for someone who has an amazing diet, was not by any stretch of the imagination optimal. And secondly, that my digestive enzymes weren't firing properly, and so I wasn't processing my fats properly, which also meant that my vitamin D, which I knew was low, and I'd been supplementing and I couldn't get it above 74, and I wanted it over 100, which also proved that my fats weren't being processed properly. So with a little bit of tweaking here and there, some probiotic supplements and some digestive enzyme supplements, and trying to increase my hydrochloric acid in my stomach acid, has helped me rebalance my digestive juices, if you want to put it like that. So now I'm actually processing everything properly, and I've dropped 1/2 stone like that.
Awesome.
Probably a little bit too much.
So this is brilliant, because I had a client with a similar issue, and we had to actually test her blood sugars after certain meals.
Okay.
Then we could see but I think that's the problem, is that we'll try one thing. For a lot of ladies, they'll try one thing, but they won't look deeper, and won't invest to go deeper. And that's the real big thing that comes up for me all the time, is that when you have situations like that and you're really working, you're coaching closely, if someone can go deep and go to that deeper level, you might have to invest in it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it is peeling back those onion layers. So, you know, when women are doing all the right things, and as you put it, the magic isn't happening, or you can see that there's still something that's not quite right, because what we're trying to do, or certainly what I try to do for most of my ladies, is try to find balance within their body again. You know, there are 7 different kind of processes. This is kind of going into functional medicine a little bit. 7 kind of processes: assimilation and elimination, detoxification, cellular transport. This is how we transport nutrients around the body. Cellular communications. This is how we communicate through our body, you know, this being the hormones and neurotransmitters and things. Defense, which is our immune system, and structure, which is our bones and joints and things. And if there is anything out of balance in any of those areas, it has a knock-on effect on everything else. So what we're trying to do is bring balance to that. So nourishing your body with all the right nutrients, macros and micronutrients. Once we know that we're doing that, but something is still not right, then it's like peeling back the layers. So which of these processes is not firing properly? And then, you can hone in that. And this is when you get to that deeper dive, which, yes, you do generally need to invest in to do some testing to find out where those are, because you can't guess, even with vitamin D, I could have been supplementing forever going, well, it's fine. My vitamin D is fine because I'm heavily supplementing. I was, but it made no difference. But if I hadn't been testing, I wouldn't have known that. However, now I know that my fats are being digested properly. And so that should mean that I'm absorbing the vitamin D properly. Then I tested again and it shot up to 178. So if I hadn't have tested, I'd have probably kept on supplementing, and actually then that becomes toxic. So you do need to, when you're getting to that level of detail. But the first thing, before everybody gets into the confusion bit again, it's the knowledge of listening to your body and starting with the basics. And the basics is nourishing your body with as many nutrients as you possibly can, keeping it hydrated, moving, sleeping, stress management.
And then I'd add protein, lift heavy things, and chill out.
Yeah, and that's the stress management. Yeah, absolutely. When people say to me, so what should I eat? Well, focus on the way that you build your plate. Don't put the carbohydrates on the plate first. They are the last thing you put on the plate. The first thing you put on your plate is your protein source. The next thing you put on, well, actually, no, it's not. I go the other way. Vegetables first, non-starchy vegetables first. They're kind of the base of the plate. You cover the plate in that. Then you put your protein on top of that, and then you might have a small amount of space for your carbohydrates.
It's always interesting that when people go, I'm doing low carb, and I'm sitting there watching them eat broccoli and apples and stuff. I'm like, going low carb, are we?
Yeah.
Like vegetables are carbohydrates, right?
Yeah, they are, and that's where most people should get their carbohydrates from. But if they feel that they need and they can't get away from those, those rice or potatoes or whatever, but just make sure that they are the condiment on the side, as opposed to because we've been taught the first thing you put on your plate is your mashed potato or your rice, isn't it? That's what goes on first, and because the plate is empty, that ends up being the biggest portion. So
I think that's because those foods, especially when people have struggled in life and all the rest of it, are cheap and easy, right?
Yeah,
Easily available. Big old bag of rice. And mum used to go to Harlesden and buy a big old bag of rice and whatever, and that she'd layer it on. And I'd be like,
yeah, I mean, with your cultural background, I mean, that is the staple diet, isn't it?
Rice, potato, yam, sweet potato. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Plantain.
Don't even go there. You are now off my podcast. Go.
I'm winding you up. I've been watching your socials.
I'm teasing you. But yeah, plantain, for those who are listening.
Yeah.
Those winding me up. But yeah, the diet is very starchy, and the ladies who listen, especially of West Indian, like those groups have the highest rate of obesity and diabetes in the UK.
Yeah,
that would work because we're one of the smaller people, so the smaller group amounts of people. So, but those are very high starch diets. It's just everything's based around carbs, like just a plate full of carbs.
Yeah, and that must be difficult, for your client base who are of that cultural background to, it's not learned behavior, it's their culture. So, changing that kind of dietary habit must be quite tricky.
Often when I get the emotion out of them, I'll say, look, what's the dream here? What's the real dream? Tell me what's the dream of how you want to look, feel, how you want to live life. Great. So this is what you want. This is how you're feeling. If we do the opposite of what you're doing now, then you'll get the dream. Are you ready to live the dream?
Yeah.
And I think that's the big problem. I think a lot of people don't have a dream. They just exist.
Yeah.
And most people with a big dream will do anything for it, right? If you've got a big goal, a big dream, and how you want to live and be, you'll do everything for it. But if you don't have the environment to nurture that dream, talk about it, understand it. You just exist. Oh, I'll be all right.
Yeah, and you know, you can imagine that kind of conversation about, you know, my dream is to be like this, and to get there I've got to give up the way that my culture eats. That's a massive shift, and to get the support, you know, like we were saying earlier on about the support and the openness at home, to make that easier, must be quite hard.
I think that's where you have to layer it and say, okay, well,
Yeah.
maybe you're not going to have half a plate of starchy carbs.
No.
Let's just make it a quarter, and we're going to have some boiled veg.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. I can do that.
Yeah.
So that you can still have, and you can still eat with others, not feel like the pariah, which I
Yeah,
think is the
exactly.
problem for a lot of people.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't want to feel out of the club, like the girls that go drinking on a Friday night. I don't want to feel out of the club of the, you know, the girls
No,
going.
and it's finding that you like you say, the ways to fit in with that. You know, with the alcohol, it's having something different in that glass, but having the same glass. It's, you know, silly things like that. You know, you can go out and drink bubbles with the girls. They may be drinking prosecco, but maybe every other glass you have is fizzy water or a tonic. You know, just, and then at least you're halving the amount that you would drink.
But then it's the question of, oh, but Joe, you're being boring. You're so healthy all the time.
Yeah, I've heard that, but I'm, you know, then that's taking the responsibility again, and knowing your why and making a good choice for yourself. And actually, quite a lot of those people that you're sat with are going, oh, I'd quite like to do what she's doing, but and then eventually, if you can be the strong one, you're going to turn all of that group around, because most of them will actually want what you're doing, but don't want to make the effort, or don't want to be the pariah, as it were. But if you can find a buddy in that group who wants to do the same, come and let's do it together. And then we come back to this community of people, which is so important, of the people that you have around you. Even if it isn't your family, you know, I try to put ladies together who are in similar, have similar journeys or similar stories. And we, you know, the groups I'm running at the moment, they each have an individual WhatsApp group, and they are sharing multiple times daily, about what's going on for them, and we're not just talking about what they're eating, what they're drinking, and how they're exercising, but, you know, it ends up being, you know, a proper support group of what's going on with their families, and, you know, why can't they fit this in, and, you know, and sharing those things encourages other people. Yeah.
As always, right? We've just done an hour.
Have we? Hey, look, and as always, I've got my notes. I haven't looked at them once.
Yeah, here's my notes. What was on your notes? I'm curious.
Actually, it's a printout of a blog I've written about, on the subject. So it's what keeps women stuck when it comes to health and weight loss. How to turn the crap to keep. So the crap was confusion, lack of responsibility, lack of awareness, lack of patience. And what we want to turn that into is keep, which is knowledge, empowerment, experience, and perseverance.
Ooh.
So to read that, you can see it in my, well, it's on my website now, but it'll be going out in my newsletter tomorrow, along with maybe a link to this podcast.
Okay, cool. So, well, okay, I better do some work and get this one out and ready.
Yeah, speed it up. Because I'm going on holiday on Saturday.
Okay, cool. I'll get it out for you. And then if I'll take that link of yours and I'll put it in the notes for anyone.
Oh, cool.
That'd be awesome. So, Joe, I think let's finish up, because I know that if we start talking, we're going to be another half hour.
Yeah, we better not.
Yeah, let's do another time. Let's do that. So it's been awesome to have you on again.
Thank you.
Just tell the ladies where they can find you. What's the best places to hunt you down and see you?
So best places to hunt me down are Instagram, at Time to Nourish. I have a website, which is timetanourish.co.uk, and Facebook page, and I have a Facebook group which is pretty thriving, called the Time to Nourish Tribe. So do come along and join that. At the moment, we're talking about healthy alternatives to Easter treats and Easter food, generally. So that's what's going on this week in there. And yeah, so I've got my next workshop coming out, my last of my workshops, my sort of one-off workshops, as part of the Nutrition, the Mind Body Connection series. It is called Eating for Life. And we take a deep dive into some of the bits I was touching on earlier about the 7 different processes within the body, and how we can eat to balance those, and work out if there's anything that's not going on right. So yeah, come and find me.
I love that. Awesome. All right. So if you're listening to this, go hunt Jo down. She's awesome. Share this podcast with someone who it might help. I think this will help a lot of ladies who can take some action and inspiration from it. And hopefully I'll drag Jo on again.
Yes.
And I don't know what we're going to talk about. Jo will do her notes.
And then we'll talk about something else.
And then we'll just go somewhere else, which is awesome. So Jo, thank you very much. Have an awesome day.
Brilliant. Thanks ever so much for having me on, Greg. Lovely to chat as always.
Every time. And I'll speak to you soon. Take care. Bye.
Bye.